Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching from, our online viewers. Welcome to this high-level panel event at the World Water Week. I think the first international event since the launch of the International High-Level Panel for Africa Water Investments by His Excellency President Macky Sall of the Republic of Senegal, but also the chairperson of the African Union. So welcome, everybody. It's a full room. And also, as we just get started, welcome to the Netherlands Sherpa, who are also the co-chair. Henk is very well known. Henk, you're very well welcome. We're just about to get started now. And we'll also begin in the African Union Commission. So welcome, everybody. So we are going to start with opening remarks from the co-chair, the Republic of Senegal, who are online. So just to make sure that they are checked on online, is everything okay? Are they online? Can they come in now? Honorable Minister Mbaye Thiam, who is the Sherpa representative for His Excellency Macky Sall of the Republic of Senegal, is going to start by opening. So are we able to bring him in now? IT from Senegal, and it's going to be in French. So I hope you are able to get translation. Yes, IT. Are we having a challenge?
He has just joined. He's getting ready.
Welcome, Honorable Minister. Welcome. We would like to see you on the screen. Hopefully the IT can project so that we can get started to official opening. Hello, Minister Thiam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so Honorable Minister, very much welcome. And you have the floor. It's a packed room here. It's a very cozy room, a little bit small because it's quite full. But you're very welcome. The Minister is not able to join us because, as you know, there's floods in Senegal, in Dakar. So he's on the ground, but we are very happy to have him here.
Very happy also to be with you today.
Thank you. You have the floor, Honorable Minister, and thank you for inviting all of us here.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to speak, to deliver my speech in French. Madame Josepha Léonel Correa Sako, commissaire.
May we have the sound, please, at the back? The sound, the volume. Apologies, yes. Honorable Minister. We're just increasing the volume in the room.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Okay, apologies for that. Just trying to make sure that we work on the sound. Okay. Okay, you may proceed, Honorable Minister. You may proceed.
Yes. Thank you. Madame Josepha Léonel Correa Sako, commissaire à l'économie rurale et à l'agriculture, la Commission de l'Union africaine, Madame Bekele Thomas, directrice régionale de l'Agence de développement de l'Union africaine, Monsieur Rachid Bazira, secrétaire exécutif du Conseil des ministres africains chargé de l'eau, AMCOW, Mesdames, Messieurs les représentants des pays membres et des institutions partenaires du panel, Mesdames, Messieurs, chers participants, c'est avec un grand plaisir que je voudrais, à ma qualité de ministre de l'eau et de l'assainissement de la République du Sénégal, vous souhaiter la bienvenue à cette session marquant le démarrage des travaux du panel international de haut niveau sur les investissements dans l'eau en Afrique. Je saisis également cette opportunité pour saluer et remercier les membres ainsi que le secrétariat du panel pour l'important travail de mise en place effectué depuis son lancement officiel à l'occasion de la cérémonie de clôture du 9e Forum mondial de l'eau, Dakar 2022, par son Excellence M. Macky Sall, président de la République du Sénégal et président en exercice de l'Union africaine. Comme vous le savez sans doute, l'objectif du panel est d'élaborer des voies et moyens pour mobiliser des financements d'ici 2030 pour mettre en œuvre le programme continental d'investissement dans l'eau en Afrique et combler le déficit d'investissement en vue d'accélérer la mise en œuvre des objectifs de développement durable. Depuis sa mise en place, le panel s'élargit et suscite beaucoup d'intérêt et d'engouement de la part des partenaires, comme en atteste leur présence parmi nous ce matin, mais aussi lors de la réunion du groupe consultatif d'experts du panel tenu le dimanche 28 août dernier à Stockholm. C'est le lieu de les remercier pour leur appui exceptionnel, notamment dans le cadre de la définition et de la proposition d'une feuille de route pour la mobilisation des investissements dans le domaine de l'eau, de la consolidation des engagements politiques et des partenariats pour soutenir le travail du panel et de la mise en œuvre d'actions concrètes en direction de la COP27 et de la Conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau de 2023. Je voudrais donc, à la suite de ce message d'ouverture et de présentation de la vision du panel, en lien avec la Conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau de 2023, me réjouir de l'engagement des présidents de la République du Sénégal, de la République de Namibie, du Premier ministre du Royaume des Pays-Bas, avec l'appui de l'ancien président de la République de Tanzanie, pour co-présider les travaux du panel international de haut niveau sur les investissements dans l'eau en Afrique. Avec la pandémie de Covid-19 et la crise économique qui s'en est suivie, l'atteinte des ODD semble compromise, particulièrement en Afrique, où la mobilisation des ressources et des financements adéquats pour les infrastructures d'eau reste largement insuffisante. D'où l'importance stratégique de ce panel, qui se situe à une étape charnière de l'agenda mondial de l'eau. Ainsi, deux aspects clés importants pourront contribuer à éclairer les travaux du panel. Premièrement, la nécessité de capitalisation des acquis. Le panel survient dans un contexte favorable, avec notamment les inputs fort intéressants, tels que les conclusions du Bon Water Dialogue 2021, le Blue Deal pour la sécurité de l'eau, pour la paix et le développement du 9e Forum mondial de l'eau, les résultats du Dushanbe Water Process 2022 et tant d'autres initiatives mises en œuvre par des pays et institutions pour faire de la sécurité de l'eau une réalité. Deuxièmement, le panel pourrait tirer bénéfice de l'alignement des planètes, une heureuse coïncidence d'agenda avec la préparation de la Conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau de 2023, où la question du financement des infrastructures d'eau sera au centre des débats et des actions clés à réaliser pour rendre effective le Water Action Agenda qui en sera issu. Compte tenu des aspects clés cités plus haut, j'invite les membres du groupe consultatif d'experts du panel à saisir cette opportunité historique pour que les conclusions du panel puissent enclencher une dynamique efficace d'action durable en vue de combler ce retard infrastructurel dans le domaine de l'eau en Afrique et bâtir une résilience bleue pour faire face aux défis du changement climatique. Je vous invite également à réfléchir sur l'importance de mobiliser les financements privés. Des discussions fort intéressantes ont été entamés au 9e Forum mondial de l'eau à Dakar, avec l'appui de la Société financière internationale AFC à travers le panel de haut niveau organisé avec les CEO de multinationales et du secteur privé mondial. Au Sénégal, l'idée d'un fonds bleu national a été lancée en combinant plusieurs sources de financement en se basant notamment sur la mobilisation des ressources domestiques pour accroître le financement de l'eau dans le budget national et recourir aux fonds de pension, aux caisses de dépôt et de consignation, aux marchés financiers, à la responsabilité sociétale d'entreprise, aux trust funds, etc. Enfin, il est heureux que le président de la République du Sénégal, son Excellence M. Macky Sall, ait rappelé la semaine dernière à Tunis, en sa qualité également de président de l'Union africaine, à l'ouverture de la 8e conférence de Tokyo sur le développement en Afrique, TICAD. 8. La nécessité de mobiliser les fonds privés, je cite, avec l'appui de mécanismes financiers appropriés. Fin de citation.
For His Excellence, Honorable Mr. Cham. Thank you very much for the delivery of the statement, and thank you very much for your leadership, the Republic of Senegal and Honorable Minister Cham. So we are now going to have a statement from...
Des ressources adéquates et encourager des partenariats durables tournés vers la réalisation de réponses sur le terrain et dialoguer pour mettre en œuvre des programmes d'infrastructure autour des ressources partagées. Telles sont les missions sur lesquelles pourrait s'adosser la feuille de route du groupe consultatif d'experts du panel de haut niveau. C'est sur ces mots que je voudrais terminer en vous remerciant de votre écoute attentive.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you. So we will now have the African Union Commission deliver a statement, but before we do that, there are a couple of us here who are challenged with French. So Senegal has made a plan. They always have a plan. So we have the Sherpa to His Excellency Macky Sall, who is going to just summarize key messages from the minister's statement in English.
Thank you. Does it work? Okay, thank you. The minister welcomed the panel work, and he thanked members of the secretariat of the panel for the important work that has been done since the launch of the panel in Dakar by His Excellency Macky Sall at the margin of the 9th World Water Forum. And he also highlighted the importance of the panel, the objective of the panel, and congratulates the membership of the high-level panel advisory groups, particularly African Union Committee, NEPAD, and the leadership of JWP West Africa and South Africa. He highlighted two important keys, points that the panel may work on. He remembered the importance to take into account the results from Bon Water Dialogue, from the 9th World Water Forum, from the Dushanbe water process, which were very important and have key message that they have give. And he also highlighted the importance to work on the road to 2023 conference, give more importance of the financing mechanism program, and work on the innovation financing mechanism program in making private sector apports in the SDGs 6 program in Africa. He also thanks this meeting and advertising and accompanying Africa in its development of blue infrastructure, mobilizing adequate financing resources and encouraging sustainable partnership. And he also give message for the next meeting that we will be held at the margin of the UN Assembly General in New York. Maybe invitation will be sent at the end of this week. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Mohamed Diatta, for that summary statement. African Union Commission, representing the AUC.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. And please allow me to stand on the established protocol and, of course, recognize the presence of the honorable ministers, including the chair who has just spoken. And, of course, I see the Minister of Zambia, the CEO for NEPAD or AUDA-NEPAD, and all the distinguished delegates who are present here. On behalf of Her Excellency, Ambassador Josepha Sako, Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment, I bring you greetings, and just to highlight the fact that the African Union Commission is committed to this process and to ensuring that this Africa Investment Program works. And right from the start, as we are all aware, Africa aspires for peace, Africa aspires for prosperity, and Africa aspires for unity. But all these are not possible unless we address issues of water, especially transboundary water resource management. And another issue that we face as a continent is food insecurity. It's actually embarrassing, to say the least, for the continent to suffer when there are challenges in the eastern part of Europe. I think we have got enough resources to be able to stand on our own and to be able to produce our own food. That is a challenge in the sense that with climate change, the continent is likely to face more challenges, especially those that are related to water. And we expect parts of the continent to get even more drier. And of course, desertification is also a challenge that we already face. So the problems are going to be compounded. And this again reminds us of the fact that most of our production lies in the hands of small-scale farmers. And these, of course, they do not have access to water, and it's a challenge for them to be able to put up irrigation schemes. So investments are actually needed in that regard as well. In terms of climate change, we are aware that the whole world is actually pushing towards net zero. But in addition to that, we are talking of a just transition in the negotiations. There's no way we can be able to talk of hydrogen or renewable energy without investing in water. Another challenge that we face is actually with our cities. Due to poor services or lack of services, rather, in rural areas, more of our people, especially the youth, are flocking to cities. And again, the infrastructure that we have are actually not up to standard. Some of them are outdated, and some of them do not have room to accommodate more people, more pressure. So that again is actually a need for more investment. So basically, as the African Union Commission, we commend our leaders for coming up with this initiative, and we feel this is actually a solution to some of the challenges that we face as a continent. And just to add our word of solidarity and to say that we remain committed and we will work with the high-level panel to make sure that everything that they are putting in place is realized. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan Nyambe. Thank you for that remarks and solidarity and leadership commitment from the African Union Commission. We're also going to have now a statement from the African Union Development Agency, the Chief Executive Officer who is here, Madam Nados Bekale. I don't know whether you'd like to be from here or we're able to come from here to the front. Okay. This right. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I would like to recognize our partners, but most importantly, representative of our member states, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Irrigation, and everything, that we were together in Zambia to launch the Zambian Water Investment Plan in Lusaka. And I'm so grateful to have the occasion to be with him today. Our partners from, especially my colleague from AUC who just spoke, who is really working together with AUDA-NEPAD, partners from GIZ, partners from OECD, the Global Water Partnership family, all protocols observed. And I would like to salute all the high-level eminent persons who have led this journey together with us. The President Kikweye, who is the former president of Tanzania, as well as our chair of the AU, President Macky Sall, and my friend Alex. Good morning, everybody. I don't think, we need to bore each other with many speeches. I think, I'll be so brief this morning. First of all, it's just to say that, we all know that water provides life. Water is life.
IT, if we can just mute the online speakers. Thank you.
So water is life, and water is the ultimate connector in the global commitments towards a sustainable future. Water provides life to human settlements, to agriculture, to energy, to the ecosystem, sanitation, and everything. Literally, without water, we cannot live, and we cannot survive. Interactions between water and other major socioeconomic sectors are actually affected, as the preceding speaker said, by climate variability and change, food and nutrition security, human well-being, human settlements. All these are really, need water. And therefore, we cannot, underestimate and really just give lip service to the development of water and to financing water services. It's very interesting to know that, for example, in 2015, Africa's population would grow and will double, From where we are, we would have 2.6 billion people living in the continent. And all these people need water. All these people need to survive, and they need food, and food needs, water. So it's very important to really stress the importance of water and financing the infrastructure for water. Water is free, but in order to develop it, we need. It's very expensive, and therefore, I think this meeting is critical. It's very important. We know that Africa is the world's driest continent and the world's most populous continent after Asia. We know that we need to develop, because currently only 5% of the Africa's potential water resources have been developed. And more than 400 million Africans still lack access to potable water. This will double if we do not take action. So we're putting too much stress on the resources that are there. If we need to meet the Agenda 2063, we have to really be serious in investing in water. And, we always think that water is just there, it's a natural gift, and we don't take, action. And in actual terms, when we look at, the problem that man creates in polluting water, it's really disastrous. And therefore, I think this kind of gathering is very critical, and I'm so glad that we're having it with academicians, with the different multi-stakeholders, that we all need to really voice, have our voices heard and make sure that, the needs that we require are met. To accelerate the implementation and focus attention on water projects, we in AUDA-NEPAD in collaboration with the Global Water Partnership, formulated the PIDA, what we call the Priority Investment on Water, Priority Infrastructure Development, actually, focusing more on water. And 17% of these PIDA programs are really concentrated on water. And therefore, we are trying to put emphasis on investing in water in the PIDA program, the PIDA Water Project, and which was under PAP, has not been fully implemented. We are now in PIDA 2. We focused on increasing the portfolio of water projects in PIDA 2, which we carried from PIDA 1, and we are adding some more in PIDA 2. It includes also the Continental Africa Water Investment Program, the AIP, which we call. Like I said, the water projects constitute 17% of PIDA PAP 2. But we are thinking, and I'm glad that I'm with Amin, who is in charge of this program. We're really thinking of really increasing it so that it takes into account the whole ecosystem of investment, and not just developing irrigation and building dams and other bigger programs, infrastructure programs. So we really want also to thank and acknowledge the water sector partners who have come together to help us in this. What has now emerged as a critical area for PIDA water and the Continental Water Investment Program, the IIP, is the urgent need and concerted need to find financing from international, private, and national sources for these priority water projects. We're thinking of blended investment, but we are thinking of really bringing the private sector and companies on board, and our support will be really de-risking investment so that companies feel comfortable and encouraged to invest in water. Africa needs to invest $64 billion into water and sanitation annually if we have to meet the Agenda 2063 and meet the SDGs. And yet only $10 to $19 billion is invested each year, leaving us with an investment gap of 45 to 54. And therefore, we are really committed. We are really committed in making sure that the conducive environment for investors are met, so that investors feel comfortable in investing in water. And I would say something. Investing in water is really saving lives. But investing in water is not only saving lives, but also the security of the entire world. Without water, and without sufficient, adequate, water, we are going to have a continent which is growing, but the world is also growing, a population that is going to be frustrated, and it will affect stability in the continent, and that would affect stability in the entire world. So we are connected. We're the same people, and I think this water partnership is really talking about the fact that my problem is yours and your problem is mine. It's not really something that is Africa is there and we are here, so we're fine. No, if Africa is not developed, the world will not be at peace, and therefore it's our common objective, shared responsibility to make sure that the major, important, foundational and fundamental need of human being and development is met, and that is water. Thank you very much, and truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Honorable CEO for AUDA-NEPAD, Nados Thomas Bekele. And now we're going to hear one more statement from the President of the African Ministers' Council on Water, who is in our midst, Honorable Minister Shwetin, who is also the Minister responsible for water in Namibia. Honorable Minister. Okay.
right?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you very much and good morning. Honourable Ministers that are joining me here from Africa, colleagues and panel members of the high-level panel. I'm very honoured to be here today and would like to thank the African Union Commission and the Republic of Senegal for having convened this high-level committee and this opening session. On behalf of AMCOW, it is my honour to congratulate the Republic of Senegal on the successful 9th World Forum and the outcome. That includes the Blue Deal, as we heard from the Honourable Minister, the Blue Deal Declaration, and His Excellency President Macky Sall's launch of the International High-Level Panel on Water Investment in Africa. That's the panel we will hear today. In February 2019, AMCOW recognized the critical water security challenge in Africa and the mounting investment needs. The government body of AMCOW approved the Africa Water Implementing Program. Subsequently, the Assembly of the African Union approved the Commensurate Investment Program, AIP, in 2021. It is the African Plan 2, which was endorsed during its 34th ordinary session. We acknowledge the AUDA-NEPAD for the leadership provided to development of the second priority action plan of the program for infrastructure development in Africa. One stumbling block, however, that needs to be removed is the fragmented way in which we deal with the water sector. And in as much as we agree that water links into almost every other sector, as a principal enabler, we nevertheless feel that water as a topic on its own needs to be elevated and receive a central role in the international and continental fora. The establishment of an international high-level panel on water infrastructure for Africa is geared towards mobilizing political commitment and leadership to accelerate AIP implementation. This is required to narrow or even better close the water investment gap of Africa, which is in the order of 49 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, the sobering fact is that over 400 million African people have no access to safe water or sanitation. While nearly 800 million Africans have no access to sanitation. So 400 for clean water, 800 to sanitation, no access. Sorry. Too many gadgets, no? That's a very sobering fact. As a result of this poor situation, one must realize that all other socio-economic development is impeded, because water is the principal enabler for almost all activities, whether we have industrialization, irrigation, agriculture, whatever. So it is a central role that water must play. To change this, we need firm political commitment by mobilizing for a significant increase in investment of finance required to implement these prioritized interventions. And I think when we talk about political commitment and change, we must ask ourselves the critical questions. If we invest in wars, that takes lives. If we invest in water, as my colleague said, that protects lives. So there needs to be a significant change in prioritizing of our activities. As we prepare for the UN 2023 conference, it is AMCO's expectation that the high-level panel will contribute to the elevating of the water agenda to the highest level of decision-making, both on the continent and internationally. At this juncture, let me also remind you of the commitment of most African countries towards the appointment of a special envoy for water by the UN Secretary General. We believe that that effort will be an effort that helps us to promote the investment, but also elevate the profile of water quite significantly up to the highest level. Let me end here and say thank you. We are looking forward to this agenda that the high level is going to discuss. And as we said, change has come. The time for change has come, but the time is now. We have no time anymore. And water is really receiving a status of it can be taken for granted. It is there forever. Europe suffering for a long time, for the first time, a serious drought. And I think maybe that's a wake-up call. In Africa, we had it every year. So we know what we are talking about when we are suffering from water scarcity. But it is not only water scarcity, it is the ability to finance infrastructure. We have an abundance of water in Africa, but we have a lack of infrastructure that brings the water to the consumer. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shwetrin, the AMCOW President, and also for the guidance that you provided in the establishment of this high-level panel. I do remember the earlier discussions, Honorable Minister, with you and how you guided in terms of how the panel itself should be composed, constructed, and what it should focus on. And its leadership, we should also include not only African leadership, but also international leadership. And with that, it is my pleasure to invite the Special Envoy and Shaper for the International High-Level Panel, co-chair of the Netherlands, His Excellency Prime Minister Mark Rutte, who is going to be represented by Ambassador Henk. You have the floor.
I was almost wondering what happened. You really got me scared. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Honorable ministers, representatives, thank you all for joining here for this important event here in Stockholm. Thank you, African Union. Thank you, President Macky Sall and Minister from Senegal, for your leadership and partnership in the issue of water. Thank you all, representatives from Africa, on what you do every day in the communities, environments, the places and institutions that you work for and work for. Henk Oving, Special Envoy for International Water Affairs. I'm here to try to guide you a little bit on why we are so committed to make this panel a success and see a future of the outcome of the deliveries of this panel. There's a sequence of events, institutional. It's perhaps a little bit boring, but it's important because we have to ground this in our institutional layers. Coming out of the high-level panel on water, where both my Prime Minister and President of Senegal were part of, a recommendation was set forward on the gap that we see in Africa. It's a large gap when it comes to water security. And part of that gap is institutional fragmentation, both in Africa on the ground, from the smallest scale up until national and transboundary, to fragmentation among donors. And often the donor fragmentation is bigger than the fragmentation on the ground, but we have to work on the two sides of this sandwich, which we can build capacity. Second, there's a gap in understanding, because we all say easily water is life, but we have no clue what it then actually means. Water is clear and necessary for food security, energy security, climate action, security across, empowering of women, children, girls first, the most vulnerable, our environment, biodiversity and its losses, wash and defenses in the context of health, as we've seen in a pandemic. But how it then works is not easily understood, let alone instrumentalized in programs and plans. So while we ask for money, we have no clue where it has to go. There are no pipelines on the shelf, there's no plans and no programs, and the fragmentation that comes with that means that with more money in the funnel, there's less action and implementation on the ground. It leads to a diversification of attention, specifically from a political level. So while money is a need, it's not the solution to drive action. Defragmentation, coordination, partnership, collaboration from the ground up, plus the political leadership and buy-in are of critical importance. Therefore, this panel is so important because it has political buy-in, but it's coupled with locally led action. Bottom-up or top-down means coordinated, effective action that is truly inclusive, truly comprehensive, touching upon all issues that water touches upon to drive sustainable action on the short, mid, and long term. Easily said, hardly done. You talked about the drought in Europe. Well, this is not the first year. But we don't talk about water in Europe. You think we do, but we don't. We talk about all other issues except for water. So water has a hard time reach the highest level of attention. So therefore also we applaud Africa's leadership in this to raise water attention to that highest level. So this is this sequence coming out of 2018, high-level panel on water, the recommendation to focus on Africa and the gaps to bridge that are a multitude. And since my Prime Minister was not only an active leader in the high-level panel on water, he also really believes that water is really part of the solution. Investing in water trickles down across every sustainable development goal, and that complexity, while in the word hard understood, he understands this very well, and he tries and wants to lead this. And this is also why the Netherlands, together with the government of Tajikistan, are the co-host of next year's UN 2023 Water Conference. Now, believe me, conferences don't change the world. There are moments in time that are easily surpassed. 46 years after the first, we have the second conference. So in my lifetime, for sure, it will also be the last. This is a moment of truth. Are we willing and able to come to that conference with commitments that matter, that actually help drive change, that have impact, that change the way we organize, the way we fund, the way we capacitate, the way we learn, the way our awareness works, the way we collaborate across sector silos or borders in continents and river basins? I'm not sure, but it's a moment of truth. Can we show the world that water does play this role of enabler, of a catalyst to drive sustainable and climate action? Or do we again lag behind on that promise we made in 2015? In the 2030 agenda, 17 goals, all connected and interrelated, a Paris Agreement? Or do we, when it comes to Fool's Day 2023, we look in the mirror and we're really fools? We lost that opportunity. And I don't want to land in April 1 after the conference to look in the mirror and look at myself and say, Henk, you did not deliver on the promise you made. So we have to, but we can't do this alone. We can only do this together. We can only do this if we really hold hands across continents, across sectors, across societies, across the borders we created, nobody else. So that is the call that also comes from the panel, that we hold that hand from Africa to the world back into Africa. The panel won't deliver money. It will deliver a clear roadmap. It will use the instrument of the scorecard to inform that roadmap. The panel will show how blended finance can work and how defragmenting the way our governments and public-private partnerships can be overcome, from the ground up all the way to the institutional level. We lack the plans in Africa and beyond. We lack the pipelines in Africa and beyond. We lack the programming, knowing that the gap is massive and we have to overcome that. We lack the understanding and the awareness that comes with this, plus the political commitment of these interrelationship between water and food, security, health, and beyond. And without that understanding and without that leadership, there will not be action that really is going to deliver. So plans and programs and pipeline of critical importance to connect to blended funding and financing, but there is no business case without a plan, and there's also no business case without trust, and there's no trust without defragmentation, so we have to build an environment that is safe for all to come together. And this is what the panel will provide, a roadmap beyond 2023, the conference in March, but also a coalition of the willing in Africa and beyond that is dedicated to make this roadmap a success with all the money that we need. But this is not the bank. The panel is not the bank. The panel is a way to get us together. to ensure that we defragmentize the way we organize, plan, but also fund the projects that are so much needed for the action that we need. That's our promise and our commitment. That's the leadership we get from Senegal and the countries in Africa and the African Union and beyond. That's the support we get from the Global Water Partnership and its partnerships across Africa and the world. And that is also why we talk here in Stockholm about these opportunities and initiatives. Come forward with your ideas, pledges and promises. Come forward with your actions and commitments that can help make this panel a success, as well as the next year's conference. And there's not only an ear, but hands and a heart and a mind to make this a success. Look forward to meet with you and work with you and see you down the road. And I really have to run to talk about food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henk. Very, very busy and a true champion of water internationally. Thank you very much. And now we will have a statement, two statements from the co-chairs, video statements. If you can bring them online, please.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with many of us living below sea level, the people of the Netherlands have known for centuries that water is the key to life. We also realize that 2030 is just around the corner and that SDG 6 impels us to step up our efforts on water now, all around the world. Looking at all the work ahead of us, it may seem like a big challenge, and it is. But let's keep in mind the famous words of Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done, he said. Words that should inspire us. Next year, the first UN Water Conference in decades gives us a historic opportunity to unite the world on water. Both co-hosts, Tajikistan and the Netherlands, urge the world to seize this opportunity and to keep working towards that moment, as we are doing today, showing the world we mean business with the establishment of an investment initiative for Africa. I applaud the African Union for launching this initiative. And it's excellent that we are doing this together. The high-level panel on water, the private sector, and African leadership. After all, climate change increases the urgency of dealing with floods, drought, and food insecurity, and their profound impact on the lives of millions. I believe that our key message today must be that the return on water investment is high, because investing in water trickles down across all the sustainable development goals. Every euro and dollar invested comes back to us at least 5 times over, in the form of protection against floods and drought, enhanced food security, better health, stronger economies, and more biodiversity. So let's not wait. Let's act now. Let's act together. And let's make sure we create that watershed moment at next year's UN Conference on Water. From the Netherlands, I pledge to you our ongoing commitment and support. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Global Water Partnership for Southern Africa and the Africa Coordinating Unit, of which I'm chairman of the board, and on my own behalf, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. 1 in 3 Africans face water insecurity. About 400 million Africans have no access to safe drinking water. And about 700 million more do not have access to good sanitation. The economic and service sectors do not get the water they need for optimal performance. That's impeding socio-economic growth and development on the continent. You may recall in 2016, the then Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, and the then President of the World Bank, Dr. Jim Kim, established a high-level panel on water. In its report in 2018, the panel recommended the establishment of a water investment program for Africa. In pursuit of that recommendation, in 2019, the African Ministers' Council on Water directed that the Africa Water Investment Program be conceived. Subsequently, the African Ministers' Council on Water Secretariat teamed up with the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, the African Development Bank, the Global Partnership for the Global Water Partnership for Southern Africa, and others to undertake the work of conceiving and developing the Africa Water Investment Program. This work was successfully concluded, and in February 2021, the Assembly of African Heads of State and Government of the African Union endorsed the Africa Water Investment Program as part of the African Union's Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, huge sums of money are required to implement the Africa Water Investment Program. The African Ministers' Council on Water estimates that about $30 billion would be required to be invested annually to be able to meet SDG 6 targets on water and sanitation in Africa by 2030. On its part, the African Development Bank estimates that $64 billion would need to be invested annually to meet the 2025 Africa Water Vision for water security for all. Currently, water investments in Africa stands at $10 billion, between $10 and $19 billion, thus leaving a huge investment gap to be filled, whichever estimates one uses. It is with the desire to build the capacity to mobilize increased investments and financing to implement the Africa Water Investment Program and close the investment gaps that the African Ministers' Council on Water resolved to establish the International High-Level Panel on Water Investments in Africa. I am delighted to inform this August Assembly that the Global Water Partnership for Africa has joined hands with the African Ministerial Council on Water, AUDA-NEPAD, African Development Bank, UNICEF, UNDP, and the Global Center for Adaptation to be conveners of the high-level panel. With those many words, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, Mark Rutte, Prime Minister of the Netherlands, as well as our board chair, His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete. We have a special message from the Kingdom of Lesotho, who is very, very passionate about water. So I'm now going to invite a statement from His Majesty, King Lesis III of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
Let me start by paying my respects to their excellencies, retired and serving heads of state and government, and co-chairs of this high-level event. It is a great honor for me and for the Kingdom of Lesotho to have been given an opportunity to address this august gathering, whose outcomes are expected to have a significant impact on the future of our globe and the continent of Africa in particular. I would also like to thank the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of Global Water Partnership, Mr. Dario Soto Abril, for the gracious invitation that he extended to me to participate in this high-level event. Water, as we all know, is a great sustenance of life. It is a vital compound which mankind and all living things depend on for their existence and livelihoods. It is therefore critical that world leaders should make a concerted effort to preserve water and mitigate all factors, be they man-made, natural or otherwise, that jeopardize water and its sources. We have to increase our efforts to mobilize sufficient funds that will be dedicated to the protection of ecosystems, biodiversity, and protection of the environment in its entirety, because it is with a clean, well-preserved environment that we could ensure preservation of water sources. In this regard, we wish to applaud His Excellency President Macky Sall of Senegal and the chairperson of the African Union for launching the International High-Level Panel on Water Investment for Africa during the 9th World Water Forum convened in Dakar, Senegal, in March 2022. The launch was indeed a historic and significant step in the right direction. It is our hope that today's high-level panel will provide the necessary political leadership and impetus to commence a well-coordinated plan of action, creative partnerships, and secure and financing mechanisms for restoration of the ecosystems. We would therefore like to take this opportunity to make a clarion call to our development partners to pledge and also fulfill their pledges to increase the level of investments in water resources for Africa. The ever-deteriorating state of water sources on our continent calls for urgent and immediate action from all stakeholders. To remedy this worrying situation, the water investment gap, which is estimated at between 11 and 10 billion US dollars per year, has to be reduced or even eliminated. All partners need to join forces and come forward to help close this gap and ensure that this initiative successfully raises the required funding of 30 billion US dollars per year by the year 2030. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, the water situation in Lesotho is no different from the rest of the continent. We are experiencing the damaging effects of climate change and poorly managed rangelands. The consequence of this state of affairs can be seen in the increasing land degradation and soil erosion, and in the drying up of wetlands and water catchment areas. Our river catchments face severe deterioration that poses serious threat to the security of clean and fresh water for Lesotho and the Orange Sintu River Basin. It is a well-known fact that the waters flowing from Lesotho's rivers supply 40% of the annual runoff of the Orange Sintu River Basin, bringing significant benefits to sizable populations in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. It is clear, therefore, that immediate action is required to protect and ensure sustainability of Lesotho's water catchment areas. Lesotho has over the years introduced a number of land management initiatives to combat land degradation, depletion of water sources, and other environmental problems caused by climate change. The latest program that the country has embarked upon, and that I had the honor to officially launch in May 2021, is an integrated catchment management program called RENOGA. This program, which is generously supported by the European Union and the German government through its development agency, GIZ, aims to restore degraded watersheds through emergency rehabilitation measures and through the implementation of extensive catchment management plans in many parts of the country. Implementation of this integrated catchment management program is as inclusive as possible, bringing together institutions, individuals, communities, and professionals who are collectively committed and dedicated to the restoration of land and water sources. It goes without saying that this program will not only benefit Lesotho, but it will also benefit the three other countries in the sub-region that derive water benefits from the Orange Sintu River Basin. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, in conclusion, I once again wish to make a plea to the international community, philanthropic establishments, development organizations, and all participants who have the means to seize the opportunity presented by this international high-level panel to support efforts that elevate the issue of water and the investment in water to the highest level possible on the world's development agenda. The Kingdom of Lesotho, on its part, stands ready to forge strong partnerships with stakeholders and interested parties that are willing to collaborate with her in sharing ideas and best practices in this critical area of water conservation and management of water sources. On behalf of the government and the people of Lesotho, I wish the Stockholm World Water Week all the success and look forward to future engagements on this important matter that is so critical for the survival of mankind. I thank you all for your attention.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates,
Very excited by the marvelous support from the Kingdom of Lesotho and also interested panel through concrete-led action. And of course, great wishes for success of the World Water Week. And having said that, we are going to now hear from those who are actually responsible and mandated to make sure that things happen, the water ministers. So we're going to hear two cases from the Republic of South Africa as well as from the Republic of Zambia. But before we do that, it is my distinguished honor to invite our convener for the World Water Week, Executive Director of the Stockholm International Water Institute, Togni, to deliver his statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion about the high-level panel. Well, if I look into the next few years or decades, where do we have challenges? Of course, water. We know water, as a matter of fact, on a daily basis, we get information different parts of the world where we have either too much or too little water. Climate change, of course, and we will meet in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, mid-November. And I think water will be a major part of the agenda of that upcoming Conference of the Parties. We have in our institute, CEBI, for quite some time worked hard to get water on the climate change agenda. After COP15 in Copenhagen in 2009, we have worked relentlessly over the years. And last year, maybe some of you were also part of the water pavilion sessions, discussions that we had in Glasgow. And we will also, together with the government of Egypt now, arrange another water pavilion. And a pavilion is a pavilion, but the main thing is to get water to the attention of the climate change negotiators. And I think the linkages between climate change and water is so fundamental, as we all know that climate change manifests itself in either too much or too little water. So that is a starting point. Then looking into the right now, the near future, of course, we had the food security issue with the lack of shortages of food around the world. And of course, what we need for food production is water. So there we started a few years ago, discussions with EU, with the African Development Bank, with a number of countries on the African continent, a program which we call TIARA, which is the Transforming Investment in Rainfed Agriculture in Africa. And I think that goes to the main part of food production, which is the smallholders, to actually do what we can do, which is to harvest the rain. Rainwater harvesting. I think that is also part of the future. If millions of smallholder farmers get that annual rainfall that they could capture and also store, we can also be part of the solution for food production, as we know that we have a shortage in the way of water due to, and thanks to, I think, economic development, but also population increase. I think this is part of our contribution also right now, and we have discussed with AU, Africa Investment Program, about that as well. So I think there are, of course, a multitude of possibilities, but I think climate change is putting a pressure on us. I think what we can do is to do where we have. It's about rainwater harvesting, but also investments in infrastructure. And if I look at the global scale, there is a huge needs of investments in water infrastructure in the years to come, and not least in the African continent with the rising population, urbanization taking place, etc. So I think massive financing. And we have been in sessions over this 2-3 days, or maybe this is the second day, World Water Week, I cannot count longer, well, about the needs for finance. But also we know that we don't have enough of funds in the public sector. We also need to attract from private sectors of finance. So I think I would like to urge the panel also looking into what is a possibility for IFIs and others also to provide more finance for infrastructure, to also take care of water infrastructure and water investments due to climate change, but also the food security issue. I think these are three main components in our view on what we can do and what we can offer. And of course, having World Water Week on an annual basis where we can discuss across the aisle different partners from public sector, private sector, indigenous people, civil society, etc. So that will we continue with. And some of us will also be having this meeting, there will be a meeting, UN Water Conference in New York in March next year. I think that is just a good opportunity to raise the level of course, water on the global scale, but also of investment needs in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Togn, and thank you once again for hosting us and also bringing us here every year to exchange and also share knowledge. And now it is my honor and pleasure to invite the Honorable Ministers, starting from the Republic of South Africa, who share water with the Kingdom of Lesotho that we've heard the message from His Majesty. And then we'll have next a locally led action from the Republic of Zambia. Honorable Minister, welcome.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I hope this is audible.
Is this audible enough, or we use this?
Yeah, I'm used to.
Because we have online viewers, so we have two audiences.
Yes.
It's audible for Zoom, but for in the room, we just.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we have heard from the presentations that have already been done and the addresses by all the excellencies that are here, plus those that are online, the presence, the co-chairs and everybody else. I think this story is very clear that it's no exaggeration to say that the next war, to those who want to talk about wars, is likely to be around water. And we wish to say, not the war, peace initiatives should be around water more than any other thing, as opposed to talking about war. Now, talk about the instruments in terms of which we are implementing and going forward with the investment, water investments for Africa. The all-encompassing instrument that we have in the country is the National Development Plan with a vision 2030. Now, that vision encompasses a number of programs in the country that are prioritized, but one of them is around water. South Africa, as His Excellency King Lietzi indicated, is a water-scarce country. And we depend to an extent to water from Lesotho. And we are very sensitive and aware that as a water-scarce country, we've got always to be on the alert and ensure that we have water security, and with the horizon 5-10 years ahead of us all the time. But of course, we have developed most of our water resources, but not to the fullest as yet. There is possibility of future expansion, comparatively much more costly than we have seen in the past. But it will involve technical issues, social, institutional, and governance solutions, of course, to our water system. And we have to harness all these aspects into one. Now, government has a national water investment plan in South Africa. And these plans entail national leadership planning, program management, water conservation, demand management, and performance and monitoring, institutional arrangements, financing mechanisms, and a lot of others, including accountability on the matters. So this National Water Investment Plan is a very important pointer to where we should go and how we should manage our issues. The next plan is on national water and sanitation, on which we have a master plan. And within that, we are developing a master plan just on sanitation alone, because we've tended to lag behind on sanitation. My colleague in Namibia did indicate that the continent runs a little bit behind in terms of sanitation. It's the case as well in South Africa. And so while we have the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan, and within that we're developing a plan on sanitation at a national level. Now, approximately, in terms of capital required to break even is about 90 billion rand per annum. That's a lot of money. And 70 billion for water and 20 billion rand for sanitation. And there's a funding gap of around 333 billion rand for the next 10 years. So we're falling way behind, and it's a mammoth task in terms of funding. So definitely, there is a opportunity for investment. Of course, it would require a lot of adjustments in terms of the environment in water or in the whole sector, and that is by and large being achieved. We already have some investments in some of the key schemes within the country itself via offtakes and other related instruments. The DPSA has partnered with the World Bank, which we appreciate, to take stock of South Africa's progress towards achieving the SDGs associated with water supply and sanitation, going beyond the infrastructure funding gap, a South African perspective. This is a very interesting initiative between the two banks, and we expect quite a lot in terms of pointers, in terms of what we need to do. But already the average annual cost, as an indicator from this study, indicates that to achieve the SGD water and sanitation access target is 2.3% to 2.7% of the GDP, which equals to between 121 to 131 billion per annum up to 2030. And again, this is an indication that we have a lot to do, especially around funding. And we will see after the studies what DPSA, together with the World Bank, are able to do in terms of assisting in this regard. But government as a whole itself has to take up the challenge and make sure that, among other things, we increase the budget on water and sanitation. Gone are the days when if somebody needed to retire in cabinet, would then be appointed to water and forestry as an area of retirement. And now you need a lot of energy. You need a lot of views and activism on the side of water and sanitation. It's no longer a retirement portfolio. Now, of course, not only are we talking about infrastructure, but we're talking about climate resilient infrastructure, because we have to adapt to the current challenges brought about by the situation of climate change. I'm happy to echo what the Honorable, His Excellency King Leeds was saying, that we have, among other things, established a special purpose delivery between South Africa and Lesotho in the form of Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, TCTA, which we are using to work on water from Lesotho, the 40% that the King was talking about, and it's already delivered, and we're going for phase 2 towards the end of this year. Much of the work has been done and dusted. And we're forever thankful to the Kingdom of Lesotho. And then there's another instrument, the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, which is the African Union Continental Strategic Framework for Infrastructure Development in the continent, which has been developed to assist regional economic community and all member states in advancing infrastructure, water, and energy. We're working together on PIDA. It establishes a common vision, a common framework, and a global partnership to put in place an inclusive, cost-effective, and sustainable regional infrastructure and all the related matters. And then on SADC projects, there's PIDA 2, which took place on 6 May. and 18 May 2021. And the objective of the water sector meetings was to provide water sector project owners the opportunity to present on the status of project implementation and to discuss the level of support needed to advance the project. And so there are quite a number. This has led, or is leading, among other things, to the much anticipated cooperation that we're looking at with Namibia on the possibility of a dam down the Orange River, which will serve that area in both sides of the country. And of course, Lesotho-Botswana water transfer, Botswana, Lesotho, and South Africa. So there are a lot of bilaterals, a lot of cooperation that is taking place in an organized fashion. And we think that if we continue with this and advance the way we were working peacefully amongst ourselves, cooperating, there's benefit to all the people of Southern Africa than if we did it otherwise. And therefore, we stand here confident that we'll take the experience to next year, and hopefully Africa will make a case for itself in terms of experiences that are working in our continent, incrementally so that we're able to meet all our challenges, both cooperatively, but also as individual countries. There's space for both. Now, the last issue is some of our local initiatives. We do have a BFI, which is a budget facility for infrastructure, which we're following now, especially with the need to create more infrastructure to store water. And I've already spoken about DPSA. We have created an office that we call a Water Partnerships Office. That's between us, Water and Sanitation Department and DPSA, in an organized fashion once more, to focus on how we can harness resources so that we can advance, because in the fiscus, you can only take one step at a time and do very little compared to the demand that you have outside there. And therefore, these partnerships are paying off and attracting more investment, we hope, going forward, so that we speed up delivery. We speed up the issue of long expectations that have been created, among other things, in our case, by democracy in 1994, some of which have not been met. And people think that you in government, you are just sitting around and then flying to Stockholm and other places, but you go back home, you don't deliver what. You now no longer cruise as a minister. When you get to communities, they ask you, where is this? It could be something said by your predecessor or the predecessor of your predecessor. It doesn't matter. People want what they want, and they keep a record of what each minister say during their term. And therefore, there's no longer an issue of cruising. People clap very less now. They don't clap too much when you come, unless you deliver. And therefore, these interventions are very, very helpful so that we make a case for ourselves while we serve in offices. So I just want to stop there in the main. Of course, we have grants internally in the country. We work with municipalities. We work with NGOs, but in particular in water services, we work with municipalities. But the only problem that we have in the country, maybe unlike other countries, we don't know. In our case, we have a decline in terms of functionality of municipalities. Their hands are getting much more softer and softer, causing us to really get involved, because we will be under the bus if we don't get involved right down to reticulation of water in terms of the structure. General structure, it will be very functional and ideal. You deal with bulk, they deal with water services. But because of the real situation on the ground of declining municipalities, not able to do what they're supposed to do in terms of core business, we then have to intervene. Otherwise, we'll be all under the bus. But we have created a lot of understanding why national government has to intervene where we need to intervene, because we take overall responsibility in terms of delivery of water and sanitation. So the call is one, let's all cooperate. There is a place for investment in the country, and we now have even established an economic regulator. So for those who say the Water and Sanitation Department is a player and a ref at the same time, we've said, okay, in order to stabilize the situation and attitudes, let's establish a regulator so that when it comes to pricing and tariffs and all of that, we have an institution or institutionalized way that would stand on its own and be able to regulate the issues of finances amongst ourselves. And we hope that the whole dispensation of water and sanitation in the country is very healthy, and we need to make it much more transparent so that accountability issues are on the table. But in the main, it's transparency that we want, it's accountability that we want, so that we advance the delivery of water in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Senzom Chun, for those very concrete, practical area activities you've highlighted that the Republic of South Africa is leading on. I think as you heard from the Netherlands, local concrete action, a high-level panel with concrete action. So we are running out of time. We actually ran out of time. We'll have an extra 10 minutes, after which we are going to close. So for now, let me invite the Honorable Minister from the Republic of Zambia to deliver his statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, in particular, Honorable Tiam, who is joining us via online, fellow participants, the CEO for AUDA-NEPAD, colleagues, ministers. In the interest of time, I would just wish to ride on the protocols as already established. I'm greatly honored to have been invited by the African Union Commission and the Republic of Senegal to address the International High-Level Panel on Water Investments session during the World Water Week with respect to mobilization of investments and finances for the ongoing climate resilient security projects in Africa. I wish to commend the African Union, but also the Republic of Senegal as chair of the African Union and other partners who include the Global Water Partnership for this great initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin my address by stating that within the context of sustainable development, water security entails that governments and stakeholders must ensure access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality of water for all. This is necessary in order to sustain livelihoods, human well-being, as well as socio-economic development. In addition, this will also ensure environmental sustainability, ecosystem preservation, and resilience against the negative impacts of climate change and water-related hazards, as you know, such as droughts and floods. The success factors for attaining national, regional, and international water security will depend on how well we collectively address the enabling factors, which comprise good governance, transboundary cooperation, peace and political stability, as well as financing. This is particularly important for Africa and African states. As you may already be aware, implementation of water and sanitation investments in Africa falls far below the required thresholds to meet the water security and sanitation needs of the continent. It is estimated, like it has already been heard here, that about 64 billion United States dollars is required annually to guarantee adequate water and sanitation for all Africans by the year 2025. However, the level of investments on water and sanitation is currently far below 20 billion United States dollars annually. The Africa Water Investment Program, AIP, was therefore formulated to respond to this investment gap by seeking to mobilize about 30 billion United States dollars per year for water security and sanitation investment in Africa by the year 2030. In response to this initiative, the government of the Republic of Zambia, under the leadership of our president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, did launch the Zambia Water Investment Program on the margin of the African Union AU Media Coordination Summit meetings in Lusaka recently, that is during the month of July this year. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, to note that the Zambia Water Investment Program is aligned to our 8th National Development Plan and Agenda 2030 on sustainable development. In this regard, there is urgent need to mobilize about 6 billion for water security and sanitation investment in Zambia for the period up to 2030. This will enable access to clean and decent sanitation. The program will also have a knock-on effect on the creation of around 200,000 formal jobs and 800,000 informal jobs, in particular among the vulnerable women, youths, and other marginalized groups. These aspirations are expressed in the manner in which the program is structured around the 3 investment focus areas, namely water investment to support economic transformation, resilience building through water investments, and indeed water and sanitation governance, as well as institutional strengthening. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that the government of the Republic of Zambia cannot achieve these aspirations on its own, but will need to partner with other key stakeholders, particularly the private sector, in achieving all this. The private sector will be key in ensuring the effective implementation of the Zambia Water Investment Program. In the interest of time, let me just call upon partners, especially the private sector, to assist to mobilize investment and provide support towards the implementation of the prioritized projects and initiatives under the Zambia Water Investment Program, as well as to support other African countries to do the same. Let me close my address by stating that the AIP should be viewed as a game changer towards changing the narrative on water, security, and sanitation investments in Africa. This is because water and sanitation investments to be mobilized under the AIP will indeed help to address the challenges on water security which are being made worse by the effects of climate change. Increased population, increased industrial use, and underinvestment in water and sanitation infrastructure, but to mention a few. Once more, I wish to thank you for inviting me and also to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Mposha, for that very concrete example and also showing leadership from bottom up. So we have 5 minutes before we close. And now we're going to have an opportunity to hear from our partners, development partners, who have also been very following and have been here with us and listening to all these statements. So we'll start with our representative from the Swedish International Development Agency.
This is the one you want me to use. Yes. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and may I say colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's been a pleasure to listen today to our colleagues from the AU, from Zambia, from Namibia, from Lesotho, from Senegal, from South Africa, and to hear that African leadership. Because as a government donor agency, SIDA, what we always look for is, of course, the good leaders and the good initiatives, where we may, in a humble way, contribute a bit. And of course, we've contributed over years. I mean, the World Bank program on SIVA, maybe $40 million over the last 10 years, and facilitating investment together with others and reaching about 37 million people. But in that context, what we've been looking for is, of course, the political leadership, which we see here today. So I'm so honored and so grateful for this commission and for the leadership of African colleagues in it. That makes me really look forward to 2023 and see what comes out of that. So I would say thank you to all African colleagues, thank you to the AU and the NEPAD, and thank you to all of you for working in a structured way to make all our investments more cost-effective in the future. Because that is what will happen when you have worked this through. So thank you very much. We're already a partner. We're looking forward to even more bang for the buck.
Thank you very much, Representative of SIDA, Assistant Director for Africa. And now we hear from the Organizations for Economic Development, OECD, who have also been working very closely with us, particularly on the PIDA Water Investment Scorecard.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, GWP, for the invitation. Honorable ministers, distinguished guests, it's really a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to address you today. I'll be very short. You may remember that in June 2022, the OECD Council met at ministerial level in Paris. His Excellency President Macky Sall was there, and together we committed to build an impactful partnership based on trust and mutual understanding to address mutually agreed priorities between OECD countries and Africa. I think the OECD work on financing water is a good way to populate this partnership and make it more material, more effective. Our work on financing water is well aligned with the ambition of the high-level panel to transform the investment outlook for water security and sanitation. As Alex said, we already are a technical partner of NEPAD for the development of the Water Investment Scorecard. I'd like to offer 2 lines of action where we could contribute further and mutually learn and share experience between OECD countries and the African continent. The first line of action is to help characterize the enabling conditions for water-related finance. Madam the CEO already emphasized the role of enabling conditions. If they are in place, finance can materialize and flow and be accelerated. If they are lacking, finance will not materialize and plans will remain, paper tigers. So we would be very keen to work with you, sharing the experience of the OECD and OECD countries to characterize these enabling conditions, review the situation in the continent, whether at continental or at national level, and explore, that can drive policy discussions on potential need for reforms. The second line of action I would like to offer is to convene a regional meeting of the Roundtable on Financing Water. The Roundtable on Financing Water is a joint initiative by the OECD, the World Bank, the Netherlands, and the World Water Council. It was set up 5 years ago to provide a platform where water and finance communities can meet to share knowledge, to share good practices and advance policy reform that can accelerate finance for water-related investment. We already convene regional meetings in Asia, in Latin America, in Europe, and they have been very fruitful to clarify and characterize investment needs, investment capacities, and to advance, again, policy reform that can contribute to accelerating finance for water-related investment. We think a roundtable meeting in Africa after the March 2023 conference, so probably around the summer in 2023, would be a very timely event to take stock of the commitments that will have been made in March 2023 and see how that translates into investment needs, investment capacities, and how regional partners can join forces to make sure that these commitments materialize on the ground. We took the opportunity of the World Water Forum in Dakar, Senegal, earlier this year to initiate a discussion with the African Development Bank on this issue. This is a fruitful, ongoing discussion. We would really be happy to rally more partners around the table in this discussion. So if there is any feedback, guidance that you would like to provide us with, we'd be very happy to have that conversation with you. Thank you, Alex, again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, OECD, for the commitment and for a continued partnership. So we've come to the closing part of this high-level event. And I think before we do that, we've heard about PIDA. PIDA is actually where the Africa Water Investment Program is anchored, under the leadership of the African Union Development Agency, AUDA-NEPAD. And the program director responsible for implementation is my brother, Amin Idris. You've heard billions being mentioned, but how is the issue of transparency, accountability, and tracking? Amin, you have 1 minute. What are you doing about it from AUDA-NEPAD? Thank you.
All right, I will just take from here. PIDA program for infrastructure development in Africa. Actually, it's 73 infrastructure projects, basically running from transport to energy, ICT. And it does include water. Actually, water is like 12 projects out of the 73. Total value, total investment actually required for PIDA is $160 billion between now and 2030, basically. So I think it's okay for me. I only have 1 minute now, 10 seconds. And we do have various instruments actually that help us to really push in the implementation of PIDA. And one of them actually is the water scorecard. We've been working with OECD and the Global Water Forum, the AIP, and all the member states to make it happen. Unfortunately, we don't really have time to present that to you today, but I would encourage you to go on our website, the OECD and the Global Partnership for Water, and to learn a little bit, and we are available to give you more information about the scorecard itself. We are pretty sure that with this scorecard, we'll be able to mobilize the required financing and to really close the gap in terms of financing. And then to be able to offer actually really access to water to 800 million people in Africa who don't have access to drinkable water. No, 400 million who don't have access to drinkable water. 800 million who don't have access to water. Serious water. That means that don't have access to water, which is difficult. But we are here to fix that problem and to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Idris, and also for your leadership, very much appreciated. And now, as my job comes to an end of being the moderator here, we have a special message from one of the conveners of the high-level panel, UNICEF, and then the Republic of Senegal, the Sherpa is going to close.
I'm on virtually in today's International High-Level Panel on Water Investments for Africa session at World Water Week. Water is life for children, but millions of children across Africa still do not have sustainable access to sufficient water. In fact, Eastern and Southern Africa have the highest proportion of children living in water-insecure communities in the world, followed closely by West and Central Africa. As climate change continues to drive historic drought and other environmental hazards, Africa's funding needs for water investments are large and increasing. If we are serious about achieving our goal of water security and sanitation for every child, we must increase financing for water investments in Africa. That's why UNICEF is a strong supporter of the Continental Africa Water Investment Program, which is helping mobilize partnerships and increasing vital international financing. As we approach the UN 2023 Water Conference, we have a unique opportunity to make these commitments a cornerstone of the transformative water action agenda. And I'm so pleased to announce that on September 23rd, UNICEF will be hosting the inaugural summit of the International High-Level Panel on Water Investments for Africa at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. UNICEF is so proud to be joining forces with all of you at this critical time, and I want to thank the members of the high-level panel for your leadership. We have a critical pathway to accelerate progress and build a water-secure future for every child in Africa and everywhere. I look forward to advancing our progress together.
We will sum up our today's discussions and to give some way forward of this panel works. Just remember that during the 9th World Water Forum, His Excellency President Macky Sall launched the International High-Level Panel on Water for Africa. The high-level panel will drive global political mobilization and international engagement to mobilize investment to meet the socio-economics of the continent and sustainable development goal water-related targets. The high-level panel will develop a report and investment action plan with pathway to mobilize funds to implement the IAP and close the water investment gap in Africa. The high-level panel report will be launched during the UN 2023 conference, and the co-conveners appointed 3 co-chairs of the panel. His Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal, as Chairperson of African Union. His Excellency Mark Rutte, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Netherlands, in his capacity as co-host of the UN 2023 conference. His Excellency Haj Gembo, President of the Republic of Namibia, as his capacity of Chair Board of Global Water Partnership South Africa coordination, which is the host of the Secretariat of the co-conveners of the panel. The work of the panel will be supported by a steering committee group, COCO group, and expert advisory group comprising shapers and advisors to the panel members and experts from the technical working groups developing the IP PIDA water investment scorecards. Just remind you that on 20th of August 2022, over 40 experts met in Stockholm, invited by African Union Commission and co-chaired by Republic of Senegal and the Netherlands. The experts adopted the terms of reference for the expert advisory group. We welcome the experts and thank you for accepting to support the high-level panel to achieve his mandate. The high-level panel expert advisory group will be led by the panel shapers to the high-level panel co-chair. The high-level technical panel expert group shall contribute to the development of the African Union policy and IP PIDA water investment scorecard and overall IP implementation through contribution to relevant follow-up action and recommendation. In conclusion, I congratulate the African Union Commission for leading the process to establish the expert advisory group for the panel building and on the foundation of the structure established by AUDA-NEPAD for development of the IP PIDA water investment scorecard. We call on African governments, development partners, development finance institutions, and stakeholders assembled here today to seize the opportunity presented by the International High-Level Panel to elevate the agenda of water to the highest level of decision-making. A peaceful, prosperous, and water-secure Africa, as defined outlined in the Dakar Declaration, a Blue Deal for water security and sanitation for peace and development, is within our reach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Republic of Senegal, and we've come to the end of the session. And I think for me, a special thanks to the Republic of Senegal Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Republic of Namibia for the leadership, and of course the AMCOW president, together with the ministers who are here. Thank you very much for your leadership and your support. And of course, AUDA-NEPAD, the Chief Executive Officer, Madam Nados Bekele. So we appreciate that you've been here with us, you've listened to the views and the commitments, and we will be with you together with the partners that are here and those that have been following online. So thank you very much for everyone, very much appreciated. There's a request for a photo. So I don't know how it is arranged, but there's a request for a photograph. Thank you very much to everyone, and thank you.